Does Neymar in Brazil have any chance of winning the World Cup this year? Personally, I'd be pretty surprised, but let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. What's going on, guys? Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com bringing you a video today to discuss some very interesting Neymar boot drama. He's back from his 3-month-long ankle injury, making his return for Brazil against Croatia in an international friendly just the other day. He scored a pretty spectacular goal, and seemingly everything is back to normal, but that's not quite the case, because if you're familiar with your boots and you saw what Neymar is wearing, he's made a very, very interesting choice that leads me to believe that either he or his doctor, perhaps both of them, seem to think that a particular stud pattern, or maybe even 2 stud patterns within the Nike Mercurial range right now, might be a little bit too dangerous for him to wear. If you guys do end up enjoying the video, don't forget to support it with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. So if you watched the match, or perhaps even just saw the highlight of Neymar's goal, you saw him wearing this boot right here, the Just Do It pack colorway of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 12 Elite. All the pros participating in the 2018 World Cup wearing Vapors will be wearing this exact colorway, but you'll notice this is the firm ground version of the shoe. The most common variant that you'll see a lot of pros wear. Lots of pros wear a custom soft ground pro version of this shoe as well, which does feature a split sole design. We saw Coutinho in the exact same match wearing that particular version of the boot. But Neymar was not wearing firm ground, he was not wearing soft ground pro, he was wearing the AG Pro stud pattern, which you can see looks like this. And the reason why he was wearing that, I can assume, is because of the conical studs. For those that don't know, they make different stud patterns for different playing surfaces in order to allow for the best possible traction / performance. There are 3 different types of stud patterns that you'll commonly see available: firm ground, soft ground, and AG. Firm ground is probably the most common and where you'll see the most amount of variety. This is made for use on firm natural grass. You'll see a lot of pros, specifically in La Liga, wearing this, mainly because the ground tends to be a little bit firmer there. Some pros wear soft ground as well, but FG tends to be the most common. Then you have soft ground, which features screw-in metal studs, typically 6, sometimes you can find a little bit more. And this is specifically soft ground pro from Nike, where they include some extra plastic studs that are a little bit longer in between. If you look at the Premier League as an example, where it tends to rain a lot more and the fields tend to be softer, you'll see many pros, if not all of them in certain matches, wearing a soft ground stud pattern, again, for optimal traction. Then we have the AG stud patterns, which is a relatively new thing made specifically for use on artificial grass. Being that most professional leagues do not play on artificial grass playing surfaces, rarely do we ever see any pros wearing this particular stud pattern. But Neymar is wearing these on a natural grass field, where other players are wearing the firm ground and the soft ground version of the exact same boot. Why is that the case? The reason why we even wear football boots in the first place is mainly because of traction. They put studs on the bottom of the shoe that obviously will vary when it comes to design to dig into the surface to allow for optimal grip, so you're not sliding all over the place. That would not be the case if you wore flat-soled shoes. If you've ever worn flat-soled shoes on natural grass, especially if it's a little bit wet, it's almost like playing on ice. Anyways, the firm ground stud pattern featured on the new Mercurial Vapor 12 Elite, which is the boot that Neymar has been wearing ever since they came out, up until the point where he got injured, features a very aggressive stud pattern. For those that aren't super familiar with boots in general, this is really known as the most aggressive traction you can have from any firm ground stud pattern. And then of course they make it in a soft ground variant as well. I would say that when it comes to firm ground shoes, this is the most aggressive stud pattern that you can buy. When it comes to soft ground boots, the one that's available to pros, which is kind of a special makeup for them, soft ground boots tend to feel the same as far as traction is concerned from one model to the next, regardless of what the layout is. So there's not quite as much variation there. And for those that are wondering, when Neymar was originally injured, when he rolled his ankle, he was actually wearing the soft ground variant of the boot. But of course, in his comeback, he's wearing the AG variation, where you can see there is one key difference in comparison to the soft ground as well as the firm ground version of the shoe, and that is the fact that it features conical studs, which aren't going going to be as aggressive. In fact, with a conical shaped stud versus a bladed stud, once your foot is planted, obviously the studs are still going to dig into the ground, but because of the rounded circular shape, it's still going to allow you that freedom to twist and pivot. And that slight bit of freedom to twist and pivot is what can be the difference between not having an ankle injury and having a 3-month-long injury like Neymar suffered very recently. So basically what I'm getting at, and this might sound a little bit weird, but actually having too much traction can put you at a higher risk of injury. And the firm ground or soft ground stud pattern currently available on the Nike Mercurial Vapor 12s that Neymar is wearing offer more aggressive traction, more cling, if you will, than the AG Pro stud pattern would on the same type of playing surface. Yes, this is technically made for use on artificial grass, but given the conical studs, which is basically a more traditional stud pattern layout for a pair of football boots in the first place, he's still gonna get the grip that he needs in order to not be at a disadvantage in comparison to all the other players who are also wearing firm ground and soft ground pro stud patterns, but he's going to lower his risk of injury because when he is planted, the bite is not gonna be quite as aggressive, and because of the rounded shape to the studs, he's still gonna have that freedom to twist and pivot. That little bit of play can be the difference between no injury and a very severe ankle injury that could put him out for a very long time. So that's simply what he's trying to avoid with this stud pattern choice. So does this mean that the firm ground or soft ground pro stud pattern on this new generation of Mercurials is dangerous? The simple answer to that question is no. Literally every other pro is either wearing these in firm ground or soft ground pro, and they are not suffering severe ankle injuries. I talked about this in the original video that I made when Neymar initially got injured, that I thought that this injury that he suffered was more or less a fluke, not necessarily something that was caused by his boots. But now that he does have this injury, trying to avoid re-injuring it, especially so close to the start of the World Cup, the thing that he's doing by wearing the AG version rather than the firm ground or soft ground pro stud pattern, honestly, I think is a pretty smart move, and we'll see how long he sticks with it, because that's going to be very, very interesting. Now, historically, if we look back at Neymar's boot history, because this is something worth noting as well, he's been a contracted Nike player pretty much for as long as he's been a pro, and he's worn Mercurials for the majority of his career. In the early days, he wore Mercurials with the standard bladed stud pattern. The Mercurial line has always had a bladed stud pattern. That's always been the most aggressive one on the market, and ankle injuries were never a problem. He had that little stint where Nike moved him into the Hypervenom line, and while he was wearing the Hypervenoms, he pretty much wore exclusively a conical stud pattern. It was actually a custom Tiempo stud pattern put on a Nike Hypervenom, and then later on, before he made the switch back to Mercurials, he actually had a custom Hypervenom made up with the bladed Mercurial stud pattern. So obviously he is quite fond of this stud pattern. They eventually moved him back into Mercurials, and he wore the same stud pattern that everyone else had been wearing who was wearing Mercurials as well. So a custom stud pattern in Mercurials has never been something that Neymar wore. So again, I don't think that there's concern for this stud pattern being dangerous. I just think that Neymar is trying to avoid re-injuring his ankle and taking every precaution necessary. In my honest opinion, this is actually a pretty smart move. So in conclusion, I often get people commenting on my channel that it's not the boots, it's the player, and I 100% agree with that. Neymar, as an example, would be just as good in just about any boots you put him in, but this is a real life example from one of the best players in the world coming up on the 2018 World Cup, that the equipment definitely does have an impact not only on your performance, but it can also have a huge impact on your safety. Obviously, if you're getting injured all the time, that is not an ideal situation. And that's not to say that if you buy the wrong boots, you're automatically gonna put yourself at a higher risk of injury, but little things do make a difference. So to say that the boots don't matter at all is just silly, because they definitely do matter, and you need to set yourself up for success. There's a reason why they make these different stud patterns. There's a reason why they offer all these different variations. You need to find the one that is best suited for you and the surface that you're gonna be using seen them on. Anyways, guys, that is it for this one. It'll be really interesting to see if Neymar sticks with the AG Pro Stud pattern for the rest of the World Cup, or if he'll eventually make the switch to the firm ground or soft ground Pro Stud pattern variations as he gets more confident with his ankle. We saw him post on Instagram after the match, his ankle still being all taped up. So obviously things aren't necessarily 100%, or they're just being very, very cautious with him. Either way, a situation to keep your eye on, but let me know what you guys think of it down below in the comments of this video. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. If you enjoyed the video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.